Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time to see then what is making the headlines with the columnist and broadcaster Steve Richards and the former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng. Great to see both of you here with us, I know, till just before midnight. Front pages then. Let's start with the Metro, leading with figures from the UN suggesting that more than 1 million people have fled Ukraine in the last week. The Financial Times quotes an aide to the mayor of Mariupol who says they're trying to wipe this city off the face of the earth. Putin vows total victory, reports the Times, saying the Russian president claims Ukrainians have been brainwashed. The Guardian writes that President Putin is prompting fears of the worst to come in Ukraine. The Eye follows suit with the headline, "The worst is yet to come." The Telegraph describes those same words as Putin's chilling warning. The Daily Mail asks who'll rid the world of this ranting madman. The Sun proclaims Putin is the extreme gangster as a father hugs the body of his dead son. Talk to me, says Volodymyr Zelensky, as Ukraine's president calls for talks with Vladimir Putin. And the Star has some strong words for the former Chelsea captain John Terry after he tweeted his thanks to departing club owner Roman Abramovich. Full kit plonker, he said. Well, a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. So let's bring in our guests then, Steve Richards and Anita Boateng. Good to see you both on what is, yet another sombre and chilling set of headlines, Anita. Many people quoting the strong words again today of the Russian president, the Telegraph included.
Yes, and this has emerged from a 90-minute conversation that President Putin had with the French President Emmanuel Macron, where he basically said, we're going to go on and on until the end. We won't give up. We still consider Ukraine and Russia to be one, and as in one nation, that is. And as a result, the French have advised that they believe the worst is yet to come. And that's certainly borne out from some of the images and stories we're hearing of the attack that took place today, and certainly it feels increasingly grim as the days wear on.
Yes, the attack in the north in Chernihiv looks very deadly, has to be said, with the latest figures and very distressing video online. The Guardian too, he will go all the way. I mean, is the point here that he's lost everything already in terms of international reaction? He might as well. What is the suggestion we're getting from the French president, Steve?
Well, it's a suggestion about Putin via the French president, who is keeping this dialogue going. And I've read a tweet of his this evening, Macron, saying he's going to continue the dialogue. If you reverse the headline and get something from Putin that suggests he's not going to go all the way, you would think you would be deeply reassured, but think it very odd. Clearly, from his perspective, he regards victory as total control and will do anything to get it, hence the headlines about much worse to come. And in a way, the West saying, oh, it's not going to plan, well, if it doesn't go to plan, he has another plan, which is much worse, as he has indicated to Macron. And this raises tons of nightmarish questions. If sanctions were going to be effective in the short term, I think they would already have been. He would have factored that in. He thinks he's on a mission, clearly indifferent to human life as he pursues that mission, but that he is on it and won't stop until he succeeds is basically the theme of quite a few of the front pages.
And the picture in the Eye says it all again. Again, the worst is yet to come. And the problem is, you kind of believe him. He's got form. You go back to Syria, you go back to Georgia. Everyone holds up Grozny in Chechnya. Devastation to that city, Anita. So you kind of have to trust him at his word, don't you?
In the sense of his ruthlessness and in the sense of disregard for human life, I think you can't help but consider that what he says is absolutely what he intends to inflict on the people of Ukraine. And what I think is really interesting is the front page of the Financial Times, in which Putin it references a video conference of his Security Council that took place, and in that, it's the first time he kind of addresses the human cost of the war, and essentially talks about the amount that fallen Russian soldiers will receive, and he talks about the fact that he blames the Ukrainian or the neo-Nazis, as he calls them, that they were using people as human shields. So I certainly think, I mean, we have to often read behind and between the lines of what Vladimir Putin says, but that does suggest some degree of disquiet within Russia about the levels of, of loss of life on the Russian and the Ukrainian side. And it's very difficult to ascertain the actual numbers of people who are losing their lives, very sadly, because this, as much as this is a war on the ground, it's also a war of information. And so they wildly different claims about the loss of life, but no one can deny the devastation that Vladimir Putin is wreaking on Ukraine right now.
Yes, and the picture in the Financial Times does just that, does it not? A Ukrainian father, the paper says, weeps for his teenage son, so just a boy, whose body lies on a stretcher at a hospital in Mariupol. And certainly the mayor of that city suggesting that the shelling is so intensive that they've not been able to go out to help the injured. So, extraordinary, difficult, painful siege currently underway there. The Mail, meanwhile, asking who will stop this madman after the words of the Russian foreign minister today, Steve, Sergei Lavrov, harking back to Napoleon and Hitler, who had the objectives, he said, to have Europe under their control. And now the Americans have Europe under their control. And this is a regime that's been stewing, it seems, since 1991.
Yeah, and by the way, the images are just unbearable, as they were in Syria and in many, many other places. I'm finding it very difficult to watch some of them, as I'm sure everybody is. On that, yeah, I mean, what seems to be the case is that Putin was in Dresden when the Berlin Wall fell. He said then it was a catastrophe, the collapse of the Soviet Union. He would have watched with anger, fury, felt patronized as that happened, and has clearly convinced himself, and this is the kind of catch-22, that anyone who falls for this have been intoxicated by the West, and therefore are collateral damage, to use that awful term, for his mission to re-Russify, if that's a term, Ukraine and some of these other places. And so when the Daily Mail poses the question, I've read the front page, they don't answer it, because there is no answer clearly to that question. And the thing about madness is it implies that there is no plan, that there is a plan. It's awful, but there is, clearly, as we've already discussed. But they pose a dramatic headline or a question in that headline. There's no clear answer.
Well, one could be the oligarchs. We will be looking into that. What effect, if any, could sanctions have on Russia's oligarchs? We'll have more on that in just a moment. Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, Steve Richards and Anita Boateng. We've talked about the military engagement still underway. It's led to, as we can see from the Metro, a mass exodus. 1 million already, we're told, the fastest mass exodus this century, and no doubt with more to try to depart, Steve.
To be honest, as we were discussing in the first half, these images are so unbearable. It seems to me that as many as possible should get out in the coming days, and clearly that's happening. Now, this raises huge issues. It's already featured heavily as a sort of sub-theme this week about the responsibility of European countries to take people on such a vast scale. But when you think about what's going to happen in Ukraine, you can wholly understand why they are trying to get out.
And, quite clearly, people have departed with nothing and there are boxes of teddy bears for them to pick up, so a child has something to cuddle, looking back, leaving, no doubt, dads, grandfathers, uncles behind to fight. You know, very, very difficult for all of those people, and they don't know where they're going next, do they, many of them? Meantime, sanctions, the squeeze on Russia's rich in the FT, the seizure of the super yachts. I mean, this is something everyone can kind of relate to in a strange way, about, you know, can these people get to Putin at all, Anita?
Yes, and it feels as though sanctions are just an important way of showing how much the kind of West is disapproving of these individuals, rather than that there's a strong indication that these oligarchs, I mean, at this stage where Putin's council and series of people that he does at all engage with seems very, very small, nevertheless, absolutely critical that all hard and soft power is used to inflict maximum damage on Russia at this critical moment. And super yachts, as bizarre as they may seem to you or I, are a key part of that.
Yes, relate to, I meant in terms of their visible wealth, rather than we've all got a super yacht, obviously, but there we are. Some fascinating detail in the FT article about some of them. $116 million super yacht being held in the Mediterranean port of La Ciotat, belonging to Igor Sechin, the boss of Russian oil group Rosneft. The other one as well, held up in Hamburg, wasn't it? $600 million, 156-metre Dilbar, belonging to Usmanov. I mean, this is extraordinary, isn't it? And it used to be said that if they're all right, he's all right with Putin. But in 10 seconds, it probably won't do it, will it, Steve?
Not in the short term, as we've discussed. He's got an objective, and he's going to do everything to in inverted commas, achieve it. But over time, it might. In the past,
Steve?
when Putin is involved in horrors, they haven't been affected. They will be this time.